What's up, everybody? Welcome back into episode of The Lawyer You Know. And we are already on the same day talking about day 2 of the Abigail Zwerner trial, where a 6-year-old brought a firearm to the school and used it on his teacher. And she is suing the administrator. And this is getting everybody in the school involved here to try and figure out who could have prevented this tragedy, who was this foreseeable to, whose responsibility was it? What did they do? What should they have done? Who is responsible? And again, the really interesting pieces of this case are comparing it to other cases where we know the perpetrator is always responsible. We've seen scenarios where parents have been responsible, and we've seen scenarios where the school has been responsible, but not necessarily in a trial format like this, which is a civil trial. There is still a criminal trial. And criminal charges open against this assistant principal, Dr. Parker, that has not gone to trial yet, which adds a little wrinkle to this as well. We broke down opening statements earlier this morning. If you want an overview of the case, if you want to hear my take on the opening statements, which lawyer's team I felt like did better, go back and watch that video we posted this morning. But I wanted to do a live to answer your questions, to go through all the witness testimony from the first 2 days. The plaintiff's case is almost done. They said they're going to rest tomorrow. So we're going to talk about a big chunk of the plaintiff's case on today's video. Hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed, because I'm planning on doing either every day or every other day updates here, because this trial has caught my eye. It is really interesting to me, and you guys have a ton of questions on it. So let's get to it. So we are here on this trial, and I don't know why this trial is just bringing out extra long openings or intros to me. But I find it important to give the details in the background. It's a brand new case for all of us. I want to make sure anybody watching has already watched opening statements or wants to go back and watch them later. If you want to be here in the live and get your questions answered, because I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about this case. But in order to present and prove this case, the plaintiff is going to need a lot of help from their witnesses. I think they laid a really good roadmap in opening, but a roadmap is just that. And it's not evidence. What are these other teachers and administrators and family members of the victim? What are they going to testify to? How are they going to prove up what happened, whose fault it is, and what are the damages? In a civil case, for a lot of lawyers, that's the most difficult part to prove up. JD and Chase are going to trial. I'm going to go with them probably, and I'm going to pick the jury here next month. And we're talking about proving damages and how you really make the jury understand what our client has gone through, because they're not actually watching our client go through it. We have to explain it with words and sometimes demonstratives. So that's really, really important. So in this case, the plaintiff decided to start out with Dr. Farish, who is the director of HR, basically somebody that comes in and performs the investigation, does the questioning, interviewing everybody involved to try and figure out what happened. She interviewed Parker, the defendant, in early January, and they discussed how students informed her another student had a firearm in his backpack, and it was actually Kovac, the teacher. So there was, some inaccuracies in what Parker was saying. Parker had no plan. Parker didn't do anything, and Parker is the person that really was responsible. When they talked about who actually did do something, Kovac is the one that searched the bag of the student, and nothing was in the bag, but somebody said maybe he stuck something in his pocket. So Rawls, another teacher, and all these names that we're hearing in this initial witness, we end up hearing later as witnesses as well in the trial. But Rawls wanted to search the student's person, and Parker would not let him. The defense tried to pacify that a little bit, like, well, she didn't say absolutely not. She kind of gave you a reason as to why you might want to search it later. And, that's going to be a big sticking point in this case. So then we get to the fact that Parker did not contact her supervisor or a school resource officer or the principal or call 911. They go through the standards, and it seems like that's what she should have done. They talk about what are some of the responsibilities of a school admin. You assume that a threat is credible unless your analysis suggests differently. And you better believe the defense is going to say she did assume the threat was reasonable or was credible. But then once the backpack was searched, there was no firearm in the backpack. Boom. That's why it's so important for the plaintiff to continue to explain the fact that, well, he could have put something in his pocket. Why didn't you let Rawls search his person? Next, they talk about requesting police assistance from the SRO or 911, immediately remove the student from class, put him in a secure area pending the investigation. All these things to me that seem incredibly simple and obvious, right? These we're not going above and beyond. It wasn't going overboard. It wasn't going to take that much of her time. And the defense keeps bringing up, well, they had testing that day. And it's like, really? What's more important? What's more important? And we have to remember the defense is like, well, they have to show indifference. They have to show indifference. And multiple times you hear witnesses talking about, oh, Dr. Parker did not even look up from her desk when Miss Zwerner came in her room to discuss this. Bird Mad Girl said, Peter, most civil trials we've watched with you usually have tried criminally first. Why is this one different? I don't know the answer to that. I feel like this would have been a lot better for them to wait if she gets convicted or takes a plea deal. Number one, maybe she wouldn't have a Fifth Amendment right. Number two, you have those convictions. And some of that might be res judicata. I don't know specifically in Virginia what the criminal charges are versus the civil causes of action, but okay, next is Mr. Sims, who's a music teacher. He was there. He says Parker was on notice. They didn't search the student's person. They should have checked the jacket. That's how he felt. On cross, they did talk about how testing was important, and Parker was ultimately responsible, even though she wasn't responsible for the entire time they were taking the tests. So I think he reiterated a lot of what was already there. Then on cross, they also talked about how he didn't know the firearm was there. With basically every teacher that was on site that day, the defense is trying to get out, you didn't do more either. You didn't think this was a credible threat either. You would have stepped up and done something different as well if this really was a credible threat. Next, on redirect, they talk about Parker was focusing on her duties, just not her duties when it comes to a 6-year-old potentially bringing a firearm to the school. And another one of the big defenses is it's not reasonably foreseeable that a 6-year-old would do this. And they're asking every teacher, has this ever happened to you before? Has this ever happened to you since? It's so unusual. And it's like, fine, in a vacuum, I agree. And maybe if at, school starts at 8:30 and 8:31, he pulls it out because he brought it to school with him, fine. But that's not what we have here. The plaintiff is presenting not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 different times Parker was warned about this. And she didn't let him search his person. She didn't remove him. She didn't bring the SRO in. She didn't call 911. That was when they argued in front of the jury about the Fifth Amendment right. And I was like, what? And this judge made some kind of curative instruction, like, you're going to hear some legal arguments. You should disregard those members of the jury as they're not relevant to your decision. It's like, no, I don't love that. I don't love that. It's really hard for people to disregard what they hear and pretend like they didn't hear it and not consider it. The judge has let way too much of that go on, in my opinion. He's letting it go on fairly for both sides. It's not like he's only allowing one side to argue, so I get that. I just don't personally like that. Then we get to, and I guess I'll show you what these witnesses all look like here. This is the person that did the investigation. This is Mr. Sims, the music teacher. And then we got to potentially one of my favorite witnesses, Mr. Rawls, who was a teacher there who had worked with JT, who is the 6-year-old. And he really cared about this student. He had been working with this student. He obviously felt a connection with this student. He never thought this student would do something like this. He jumped into action when it happened and did everything he could to help. And you could tell it's really stuck with him. He was just an unbiased witness. I don't think he was a home run for either side because, of course, for the defense, he said, yeah, I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't think JT would do this. I didn't think it was a credible threat. I was surprised. Even when I heard the gunshots, I didn't think it was JT. But at the same time, he is saying, I did get the information that somebody said they saw JT had bullets in his pocket and he was threatening another student and having a bad day that day. And to me, it's like, those all feel like credible threats. But again, I don't know JT. I wasn't there. So I get it. He talks about how he felt regret after, how the plaintiff was in shock and he saw her sitting there with her wounds and just how brutal it was. This was one of the Bush League moves by the defense attorney that I really hated when they were like trying to get the fact that Farish, the investigator, said no one could have known that this was happening. Isn't that true? Totally irrelevant. It's hearsay. She knows that it's not going to be relevant for this witness. and yet she still tries to say it in front of the jury over an objection. The judge has to sustain it and strike that question. Thank you for gifting one Lawyer You Know membership. I do want to play just a little snippet from Mr. Rawls here, him explaining the events that he witnessed that day and just shaken up. There's a lot of emotion in this case the jury's having to, deal with. It is moving very quickly, though. They're getting witnesses up and down, streamlining the case, keep it simple, stupid, like really good civil lawyers do. I have really liked their presentation of the case. And from my point of view, you guys let me know if you agree or disagree.
You said you knew something was not right. What did you do after you heard the frantic call? I know, Mr. Rawls. It's okay.
I got on the walkie-talkie and asked if anybody needed assistance, and no one answered. So procedure is not to leave my area, but I left my area to go around the corner to see what was going on. As I proceeded to go around, passing the cafeteria area, down the main hall, and there's another main hall area where it heads down to the front office. There were janitors in the hallway, and I could see speckles of blood on the floor, and they were cleaning it up. And I said, what are you guys doing? It was a lot, I ain't supposed to be out there. And one of the janitors mentioned to me, they said, they got him. And I'm like, they got who? And they were like, the student in the classroom down here. So I proceeded past the janitors into Mrs. Z's classroom because the only door was open. And as I stepped in, Miss Amy had JT over in the corner, and she had him like a hold, not like a restraint, like just hold, like holding by his arms. And I said, what's going on? And she said, he shot her. And I said, he did what? And she said, yeah. And I said, where's the weapon? Where's the gun? And she had pointed across to the hall. So I walked through the classroom on the far end, and the weapon was on the floor. My initial reaction was because another janitor was still inside the classroom at the time as well. And
he talks about how he thought maybe I should, gather it or move it, the firearm, but police end up showing up and they end up doing it. But brutal, like how this affects teachers and students and everybody in the school. And from my perspective, like if I'm plaintiff's lawyer and I'm talking about how this affected my client who actually has a bullet still in her today, look how it still affects these other teachers. This is something mentally that is going to stick with them forever. And her more than anybody, because she literally has the scars to prove it. And we'll talk about her medical treatment, but I thought it was really powerful evidence to hear him explain it. The next witness was Jennifer West, who was another teacher there. And she discusses again, how another student said JT had a firearm and bullet and was crying. And that student they called R throughout. And she kind of kept R with her because he was really scared that JT was going to do something. And she confirms that Rawls, the person we just heard from, asked Parker if he could search it. Rawls also confirmed, I asked Dr. Parker, can I search JT's person? And they all said no. She also talks about, what she did and what it was like for her when she heard the shots. Then on cross, they discussed how, she was convinced that there was a firearm after talking to R, yet you didn't go do anything. You didn't go search him personally. You didn't go search the bag. And she said, I thought the protocol was to tell the administrator, and Parker had been told. These witnesses are really well prepped because if everybody's doing their duty, things work. If I'm the plaintiff, that's kind of my theory. If everybody does their job, this protocol works. And all these teachers did their job to talk to their supervisor, and Parker dropped the ball with reckless indifference for caring about human life here. And she didn't tell her supervisor. She didn't separate the student. She didn't search his person. She didn't call the SRO or 911. And that's been kind of a consistent theme throughout. Kathleen said, how did the plaintiffs get to $40 million? So I haven't heard them say that's what they're asking for yet. I know that's what the reports are. So let's wait and see what they ask for. But they do talk about damages today, not necessarily a number figure yet, but explaining the harms and losses that this caused to their client. And we will talk about that. Steph said, can you do the Maya appeal? Absolutely. But I want to take my time digging into it. It's 50 pages. I'm trying to figure out what the best way is to do it to not miss anything and really dig in and explain it. I might, have somebody come on with me and kind of read it while I'm listening and can break it down. So I'm thinking the whole time we are thinking about the right way to do this. We are definitely going to break it down in depth, not just a summary of it. Tar Girl, thank you for gifting 10 Lawyer memberships. That's awesome. The next witness was Miss Kovac. John is also watching this trial. He said she was his favorite witness because she had a lot to say, right? She was definitely the most, I think, in favor of plaintiff, but also just really against the defendant. She seemed to be, I think she's higher up than the rest of the teachers, but she still reports to Dr. Parker, who's the defendant. She said she was actually the proctor for the makeup tests. She was the one whose responsibility it was, not necessarily Parker. Parker didn't have to do that much. She did have to kind of oversee it. She talked about how she talked to JT that day. He gave her a hug, but then when she asked to look at his backpack, he said no, wouldn't let her look in the backpack. That was unlike him. And then let's listen to the part where she says she did her duty, which was to tell Dr. Parker everything because that's her supervisor. Before we get there, let's see. Is she the only one being sued and charged? I think there was more people being sued. I don't know the whole procedural history around this case. I jumped in at trial. I read like a news article on it when it first happened, but I thought there were more people involved and they had been dismissed out from the judge. And I think some causes of action were dismissed out, but I'm not positive about the procedural history. Charlotte, because I saw you said, I am Charlotte. Sometimes name changed. Weird. Yeah, YouTube does weird things. 2 years ago, my daughter was in second grade and another classmate trapped her in front of the bathroom and threatened to end her. It was taken very seriously and I was updated every step. Yeah, I have had situations and cases where stuff like this happens in schools, and every time I've ever been a part of it, it's handled differently. Some schools handle it amazingly well. Some schools handle it horribly. And I think that duties should be taken seriously. Safety and protection for students should be taken seriously. And by the way, just because we're focusing on the school here, because that's this case, doesn't mean they are the only person at fault for this or with some liability. Let's make sure that that is clear here, but we really are focusing on them because that is the nature of this case and trial that we're following. So let's take a listen to what Ms. Kovac had to say, and you can get kind of a vibe of her testimony.
Right then.
And
afterwards.
do you tell her that you're going to go see Dr. Parker?
Yes. Well,
This is direct, by the way. It's direct examination.
What I told her first was, I asked her when recess was. She said in 10 minutes. I said, okay, I'm going to go and I'll come back in 10 minutes to check the bag. But at that point, as soon as I left, I went and reported to Dr. Parker that the girls had reported to me that there was a possible gun. I went and sat with him. I talked with him. I told her what I had done.
And let me pause you before you get into.
And so there was this theory of they'll check the backpack once he goes to recess, but then the issue is he put something in his pocket. They assumed it was the firearm, but then Parker wouldn't let them search his pockets. She said his pockets were too small. And then additionally, when Parker wouldn't let Rawls search the student's person, meaning his pockets, she said his mom's going to be here soon. It was like 1:45 and the mom was going to be there at 2:30 and the shooting happens at 1:58. So there are those nuances and context to it that we discussed in yesterday for me, but this morning, if you guys watched that video.
Exactly what you told Dr. Parker. So before you go down to Dr. Parker's office, do you tell Abby that there's a concern about something at this point?
Yes.
And you advise.
We remember also in Virginia, if you're 1% liable and you didn't do something you should have, so they're going to try to blame Abby, who is the plaintiff in this case, Abby, Abigail's, Ms. Zwerner, Ms. Z, she goes by all those names. So, the fact that maybe she knew about this or Kovac told her about it, should she have done more? But again, she's reporting it up the chain and they're sticking to that is the duty all of these teachers have. And they did their job, but Dr. Parker did not. If you guys are interested in this trial, please let me know by hitting the like button. Like I said, I'm going to watch it either way. If you guys don't really care, we don't need to keep doing recaps on it. But if you do, hit that like button and let me know in the comments and we'll keep doing it.
Her that you're going to find Dr. Parker and talk to her.
Yes.
Okay. And then did you tell Abby to keep an eye on him until you came back?
Yes. Well, yes.
Okay. So now walk the jury through. At this point, you're going back down to Dr. Parker's office. Is she still sitting at her desk?
Yes.
Okay. What do you tell her at that time?
So at that time, I go up to her and I tell her that the girls reported about a gun, that I was in there. He would not give me the bag. He was not acting normal. And so I told her that when Abby's going out to recess in like 10 minutes, that I would be back to check the bag.
And so then Ms. Kovac, did Dr. Parker respond to you or give you any direction?
She just kind of nodded and acknowledged that that was what I was going to do.
Okay, so you let her know, I'm going to check the backpack.
Yes.
And she nodded her head.
Yes.
Okay.
She was aware.
Do you then go directly back to check the backpack?
No, because I was now waiting, for them to go to recess.
Okay.
So I left her office, was heading back down to my office. When I got to my office, I looked at my cell phone. Abby had texted me and said that they were now outside, but he had gone to his book bag and took something out of his book bag and put it in his jacket pocket. So
Did Abby tell you what she thought that was, or what did you think that meant?
to me, it felt like it was whatever he had, like the gun.
So what do you do once you hear that response?
So after I hear that, I go right to Abby's room and I'm checking that bag. Because again, he was acting really weird, and I checked that bag and I knew it wouldn't be there because Abby pretty much told me something he put into his jacket pocket. So I checked the bag. There was a math book in there. There was a homework book in there. There was a little Spider-Man puzzle that we had made in small group that was there. He had a gold, like little coin tokens, from like Happy Meal or something. And then in the front pocket, he had a calculator. He had not been getting math in his modified schedule. And he always wanted me, when we did reading, to do something. I taught him how to write hello on the calculator upside down.
So at that time, you've searched the bag yourself.
Yes.
Do you then go back to Dr. Parker's
Yes,
office?
I do.
And is Dr. Parker still sitting at her desk in her office at that time?
Yes, she is.
Is there anyone else in her office?
Not that I recall.
Okay. What do you tell Dr. Parker at this time?
So again, I tell her that I went and checked the bag. I told her just what I said to you all, what was in the bag. And then I also tell her that Abby texted me that they were out at recess, that he took something from the bag and he put it in his pocket.
Did you tell her you...
So this question from Kimberly, how can it be reasonably foreseeable that a 6-year-old bring a firearm to school? Well, generally, I would say maybe it's not. Today's day and age, I don't know. But once you are put on notice, that not one, but multiple people have this concern and have heard that this could be real, it's now foreseeable, in my opinion. Amy said, this is an outlier, not a usual happening. Are the staff permitted to search a student? What if they had and not found anything? Then who would be in trouble? So first off, yes, they have a reasonable suspicion to search him and his backpack, and you have a lower expectation of privacy in school. But if they would have searched him and found nothing, like he went and hid it in the bathroom and whatever, but Parker was like, well, if she would have done her job, in my opinion, you search the bag, you search his person, you isolate him in the room. And if you feel like it's still credible at that point, even if you don't find a firearm, you call the SRO or 911 or send him home that day. That's how you eliminate the threat. But if she would have at least done all of that, let her principal know, ask the principal who's her supervisor, what should I do? Do you want me to call it in? Follow the protocol. And if they said no, you can send it back to class, and he had hidden it in the bathroom or, in a bush or something, and then he went and got it, at least she did her job and followed the protocol, right? Those are the different set of circumstances than we have here. Chris K said, with the pending criminal charges, can the defendant refuse a deposition? Yes. From plaintiff. Does she have to testify? No. If she doesn't testify, can the jury draw a negligent inference from this? I don't know how it is in Virginia, but generally speaking, yes, that can happen. I don't know if that's how it's going to work in this case, but we'll see. We'll see how they handle it in Virginia. Somebody asked, where did this happen? Happened in Virginia. JFD said, mom is already serving time for this guy. I didn't know that. Because like I said, we're focusing on just what this trial is telling us. And I think I like coming into trial like this, only knowing what's being presented and nothing else is going to color the way we look at the case. Joanne said, Peter, thank you for covering this. Just retired from the school system in June. Why are the plaintiffs going after and I see you said assistant principal and not the school system? And then here's the correction. Because she's the person who was indifferent and grossly negligent in failing to do her duties, right? That's the way that they're doing it there. There can be, and like I said, there's work comp elements to this. And I broke that down a lot more in the video I posted earlier today. What other things were Dr. Parker dropping the ball on? Well, we're going to hear from an expert, a school teacher administration expert, and we're going to hear her opinion on where she thinks Dr. Parker dropped the ball.
Thought it could be a gun?
I told her that I reported that it was a gun.
I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit here.
Okay, and do you hear a gunshot or sound of something that sounds like a gun?
Yes. So Laura and I had finished testing. We had been sending the kids down the hall as they finished. At 2 o'clock, both of us were walking down the hall, had left her room, which is in the second grade wing across from mine. So we came through there's like double doors. And at that point, I heard that gunshot, and instinctively, I walked into that room. As I come in the door, Abby's on this side. I see blood on her leg. So I knew she was hit. I wasn't really sure. On this side, I see Jen open the door, the kids screaming and running out. I felt like I had a bubble of God around me, and I walked straight to him. He was standing there with his legs kind of spread open, arms crossed and cocky. And when I got to him, I didn't say anything. I took his wrist because I knew he shot with his left hand. I walked to Abby's desk where her phone was. I put him in between my legs, put my arms around him. I picked up the phone to call 911. Remembered you have to hit 911 to get out. I asked if this was 911. They said yes. I said, this is Rich Neck. A teacher's been shot. I have the shooter. Send help.
So, Amy, I'd like to pull up.
Pretty heroic by her, right? And I think the jury's going to like her as a witness. And like I said, the defense is going to go after her a little bit, and she battles with them. And, maybe that they might think she's maybe biased toward the plaintiff, but like she's the hero in the story, right? She went in, walked straight up after he had just pulled the trigger on another teacher. Like, what was to stop him from doing it to her? And she went up, stopped to make sure no other kids got hurt, no other students or teachers got hurt. Like, to me, she was pretty heroic. So I think the jury's going to probably like her as a witness, is normally how it works. They talk, on cross, they talk about how she's third in command. She's on the crisis management team. And basically trying to say you should have done more too, and you didn't because it wasn't foreseeable. You and Parker are the same. The jury may buy that. I don't know. She talks about how she thought Parker was rude. And she knew everything Parker knew, and they basically did the same thing, which is also not true because she went out and searched the backpack herself. But that's the story the defense is trying to tell. Let's listen to a little bit. So again, you can get kind of the vibe.
Yes, but
You sat right beside him.
I sat.
And this is cross, by the way.
He was here, and I sat next to him. He was balled up. I wanted him to talk to see exactly what was going on.
And the backpack, he wasn't holding it.
No, it was on the side, but he.
So this is him basically trying to dig in on, you could have just searched the backpack right there before he took the gun out, and you didn't. So basically, this is your fault. Will there be a criminal case or just a civil case? There are current criminal charges against the civil defendant in this case. Joanne, they actually show a picture of the firearm if you want to see how big it is.
Had his body close to it.
So the backpack was next to him,
Correct.
right? And you were next to him as well.
Correct.
And you're the third in command of that school, correct?
Not really, only when they're absent. I am not an administrator. I am a teacher with a specialized degree and certification in reading.
You're also not a 6-year-old child.
No, not at this time.
No, and so when you needed to, you've confiscated contraband.
There were some giggles. I can never tell if that's the jury, but if it's the jury and they're giggling when she says something tongue in cheek, that's usually good for her, and good for her is good for the plaintiff, in my opinion, how I'm, analyzing how this is going.
Children before?
No.
Never as a teacher have you ever confiscated any material from a student.
I mean, papers, homework, something out of their book bag, like money if the parents sent it in, picture day.
Don't elementary school teachers, aren't they in and out of school bags all the time?
Correct.
Right? That's pretty routine.
Again, we did not, knowing JT, his behavior, his actions, and the other children being in the room, I was not going to cause hysteria. I did what I did. I sat there trying to help him based on that relationship, and then I went and reported. And I can't help what somebody else did not do.
And before you did that,
Very clearly pointing the finger at Parker. I can't help what somebody else did not do. And I'm sure none of these people want to feel like it's their fault, and feel really guilty for it. It's tough.
Correct. Go ahead.
when you were sitting next to that child,
Correct.
you could have just reached on over and
I
grabbed
could
it.
have, but I can't turn back and do anything that I did not do back then.
Right.
In
Defense loves to hear that because that was their opening. Hindsight, Monday morning quarterback, retroactively going back and changing things. Nobody can do that.
retrospect.
In retrospect, in hindsight, you're not able to go back and change
Correct.
that decision.
Correct.
But you could have easily, especially
I don't know. I mean, I was trying to protect the children.
you were concerned about being overpowered by a 6-year-old child,
Correct. If you knew him, you would be too.
or you're concerned about being out. Oh, you're indicating that he was a threat. Did you fear?
Not me. I did not fear him. We had a good relationship, him and I. But he is very wild. Administration.
So that's another interesting thing they haven't really dug into is Rawls loved this kid. Seems like she loved this kid. What was the plaintiff and his relationship? Like, did he hate her? Did he, throw fits? I don't think they've talked about that too much. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that would make a difference too on whether or not you'd actually be afraid or think it's a real credible threat depending on what the relationship is with the student. Daybreak, it seems like there was a potential consequence to searching the boy if there was no firearm that everyone was passing up to a superior. Was it a policy? Does not seem like it. And I don't know. They had a very, very, somebody just messaged me on Twitter that he'd been a school administrator for 20 years. And this is crazy that they didn't search. They had way more than a reasonable suspicion. I tend to agree with him. There would not have been repercussions based on the accusations that have been made if they would have searched his person in his pocket and not found a firearm. No way. In my opinion, right? It's just my opinion looking at it.
Used to let him talk on the walkie and run around in the office.
Didn't he hug you all the time and smile at you?
Sometimes, depending on his mood and what set him off on the school bus with any child.
Weren't you also closely involved in his...
I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. They're going to get into, have you ever searched a book bag before? Things like that.
There's a library book in there. Their homework is in there. It hasn't been turned in.
If you ever suspected that they had something that didn't belong to them, you would just tell them, go get me that book bag. You get that book bag, right?
It depends on what the situation was. In this situation, I did not feel comfortable because I did not know what his reaction would be.
Well, when you were speaking to JT, isn't it true you thought, if anything, he had a toy gun?
That was my own personal thoughts, and I told that to HR. I never told it to Parker because I would not put it past him. But just like any public school, we take children how they come, and we do not know what their home life is like.
You said you wouldn't put it past him. You mean JT?
JT, correct.
You think that he set you up?
I feel looking back, he did set me up or somebody else.
I'm going to object to the relevancy of that question.
Right, what's the relevance of that?
The relevancy.
So they start to get into did a 6-year-old trick you? Did he set you up? Is that real? Crystal said, Peter, I received my jury summons today and I hope I get picked. I'll be a good juror thanks to your teaching. Crystal, that's amazing. Can't wait to hear if you do get picked. I hope you do get picked and I hope you're as fair and impartial as ever. Didn't they say that the only one that could search was the vice principal? I think they said they had to ask her and get her permission. She was the one that had to make the decision, but she was not the only one that could physically search, I don't believe.
I think it's conditionally relevant, Judge, and I can lay the foundation for this. Okay. I can provide that. At that stage, sitting next to that child, received a report that he might have a potentially deadly weapon on him, right?
Correct.
And with that knowledge, your next step was to ask for his permission to search his backpack, right?
But if he had a gun in there, I wasn't going to take that out.
You said, no, you would leave it there and continue to teach a lesson in front of the students.
I sat with them in there, with him away from his book bag.
And then you go and you speak to Abby, Miss
I go
Zwerner.
to, yes, to ask for when recess is, yes.
Right.
And then I leave there and I go and report.
But before that happens, JT tells you, Miss Kovac,
Yeah,
I have some shoes that I need for recess.
correct.
I need to get into that backpack later. He tells you that.
Correct.
And she lets him go search the backpack. And while it feels like the defense is, blaming her, but I think what they're really trying to set up is everybody had the same information and nobody went and searched this person. Nobody went and confiscated the firearm. So why can we possibly point the finger at Dr. Parker?
At that stage, and you have that knowledge, you know that he might have a deadly weapon in that backpack. He has told you he intends to access that backpack, and you leave the room, correct?
I leave the room, but I did not think about him having those shoes in the bag. That was in retrospect after all of this has happened.
You didn't think about that because you were tricked.
I was focused on him.
He set you up.
That's how I felt
Judge,
in
I'm gonna
retrospect.
object. A 6-year-old, I think we've already gone over this in the past, can't have the intent here. We're talking about setting her up. It's out of...
And that's more, argument about legal objections in front of the jury, which I don't love, but.
We're tricked by a...
So, go ahead.
You're telling the jury that you were tricked by a 6-year-old child.
He did not trick me. I thought of that on my own several weeks
All
after.
by yourself. You
Correct.
thought that. Very good.
Correct. In retrospect.
Stuff like very good. I always hate that, but a lot of lawyers do it. Sent said, that day was insanely scary. My kids, nieces, nephews, and grandkids have all gone to this school. One of them at the school that day, same grade, different room. I honestly, I don't put anything past anybody anymore, but this is hard to fathom and imagine it happening. It's brutal. John, tell me you don't have kids without telling me you don't have kids. I don't think you have kids, but I don't know. It's kind of a funny question. And I would ask the same thing. And I have 2 kids that have already done first grade. I believe you're in first grade when you're 6. I guess theoretically, if you're some kind of later early birthday, you could be in kindergarten. If you're held back or if you skip a class, usually somewhere between K and second grade, but I think most are in first grade when they're 6. Daybreak said, but then why is Ms. Zwerner's attorney not saying that if they had searched the boy without Parker's permission, they could have faced firing if that's the case? I don't know if that's the case. Just because you have to ask the assistant principal doesn't mean if you do something that you're going to get fired. Maybe there will be some kind of negative repercussion, but they haven't really set that out yet. This is why we're doing it live. I love answering all the questions and taking as many as I can. But this case is really has a lot of interesting legal theories inside. So I see people asking who would pay the money. I don't know if there's some vicarious liability claim with the school in the background. Obviously, I don't think Dr. Parker is going to be able to pay this. Most normal people can't stroke a check for $40 million, but we'll see.
And his mother also, because she carries the book bag in.
Okay, let me jump ahead. And she keeps saying things like, I had to go be the proctor for the testing. And they're like, yeah, just like Parker. And then this was an interesting way to end Cross, was on this text message that she sent Parker 2 days after the event. Okay. Clearly it seems like she doesn't like Parker. Seems like she thinks Parker dropped the ball, quote unquote, blaming Parker. But this text message is how he ended it.
So when she sent after when she said she's in shock.
Right, so your objection is relevance.
Yes, Judge.
Okay, I'm overruling that, and they've now brought up just her text. So I'm going to overrule that objection, and you may publish.
Ms. Kovac,
Yes.
You're an amazing person and educator. No one could have ever predicted this. We all did our best. We did what a true teacher will do in this situation. Be there for our children in school. As I look back, I should have sent JT out of the room with a note and a job to deliver it around the school, and I could have gotten that book bag, but I didn't. We can't look back. We can only move forward. I love you both and am proud to work with you. So this is what she sent to the defendant. I thought it was a great way to end, because that's their theory. Nobody could have known. We all did our best. Now that she knows, maybe she didn't know everything Parker knew. Maybe she thought Parker did other things. Sure. But I thought this was a pretty skillful way to end Cross with the defendant.
have we published? This is 2 days after the incident,
Yes.
and you're sending a message to Dr. Parker. Quote, you are an amazing person and educator.
And that is true. She
No
got her
one-
doctorate.
No one could have predicted this. That's what you told her.
Meaning a 6-year-old would bring a gun to school premeditated to shoot his teacher.
No one would have predicted that. And you were telling her the truth then, right?
I've been telling
what
the
you did.
truth the whole time.
So you agree here in court today, no one could have predicted this.
Judge, I'm going to object to it. No one.
Yeah, I'm going to sustain that objection.
No further questions to the witness, Judge?
All right, thank you. All right, any redirect? All right, no redirect.
All right. And that was the end of that witness. Why didn't anyone go to the principal if they still had concerns? So, Sandy, one of the issues is I'll tell you what they're presenting at trial, what my vibe is as to what they're presenting. And if you're a juror and this isn't good enough for you, I think that's fair. They said Parker is their supervisor. Their job is to talk to their supervisor. And they hoped Parker would do her job. Nobody could have predicted, but who could have prevented? That might be one of the big questions for the jury. All right, next we're going to get into some lay witnesses. We're going to hear from the victim's mom and sister, and also a lot of the treating physicians and doctors in her case. One of the doctor was the surgeon in the critical care trauma section, describes her injuries, and they used a bunch of really good demonstrative aids, some of which I don't think they would have allowed in Florida. But this x-ray I thought was incredibly telling, all the bullet fragments literally from the x-ray. And you can see, and they say they're just centimeters from her heart and from one of the huge arteries that would have caused her to bleed out. To me, the way they explain these damages hit home. Like it really, really hit. Charlotte sometimes said, Peter, having young kids yourself, how do we not panic about things like this? How do we not panic, right? I always want to do everything I can to protect my kids. I think that's why we pick schools with the ability that we have to pick schools and do everything we can to protect them and be involved in our school to make sure there's the best protections there possibly could be. We hope and help as much to train teachers and people and hopefully have law enforcement there. We realize that in this life, we can control what we can control. And there's a lot that we can't control, right? And I think this is what, these types of things drive people to faith, and faith, I think, affects your worldview and the way you look at everything. And that's how I deal with this as well. Is my faith in realizing that I can't control everything. And there's so much that can happen every single day that if we really want to freak out about it, and I think social media has added to this, because it used to just be like, maybe I would know what happened in Pinellas County or Clearwater or Tampa or Florida. But now I know what happens all over the world in an instant, all the bad things that happen. So it makes us more anxious and panic more. And, I don't think that's how we're necessarily meant to live and understand, because there are differences. And again, we can't really control it. But we can control a lot. And that's the point, is we have to do our job and control as much as we can. Charlotte, thank you for gifting 5 Lawyer memberships. So then we hear from her mom, who is also a teacher, talked about how the plaintiff wanted to be a teacher and how kind and gentle she was or is. And she explains, what happened that day and how she saw her all bandaged up and she called her mommy as an adult. It's, tragic. She's had 6+ surgeries, including bone grafts. Again, we're going to hear from the doctors with that. And one of the big things in these cases is what is different? How has she changed, at least personality wise? And we're going to hear a little bit of that explanation from the mom. I will say they weren't overly long. So you guys that are watching the trial, tell me if you think there's enough to show that this teacher, Abigail, was really damaged in this case, or do you think they're overblowing it and it's no big deal? Because I know from my perspective, it seems horrible. Maybe I'm biased as a plaintiff's lawyer dealing with victims all the time, but what happened to her and the way it was described, brutal to me.
Personality since January 6th of 2023.
Now, she's afraid a lot. Certain things scare her. Crowds, going to certain places she won't go to. Things I've never had to think about have been an issue for Abby. For example, we've had a couple of family, like baby shower kinds of things with balloons. And the first time one of those balloons popped, it was traumatizing. For Abby, it was like being right back there. Nobody in the family ever thought twice about not having balloons there. We don't think that way. We've never had to. But that's what Abby's world is now. Those things that you don't expect to trigger can trigger. Something else that happened fairly recently, we were going to go see a movie, and we even had the tickets. And the morning of the day we were going to go see the movie, Abby literally could not leave her house. She said, "I can't go. I don't want to go. There's a scene in that movie. I can't go."
Do you mind me asking what movie it was?
It was the film version of Hamilton. Okay. And I know there are a couple of dueling scenes in there. And I don't know if that's what she was referring to. That's what I think probably. But things I never would have thought about before. I'm learning to consider what her world is like. Just being afraid of things or things happening without warning.
And, trying to explain that is hard to a jury, but trying to make them understand how this has affected her is an incredibly important thing that needs to happen in these cases. She also talked about how it's hard for Abby to have plans. But then because, she's still hurt and she's still dealing with surgeries and things like that. But the defense continuously brings up, well, she's a licensed cosmetologist. She has had a couple clients and things like that. And, I think some people might think that's trivial. Some people might think maybe she's fine because she's able to, go in that line of work. Then we're going to go to day 2 here. And we start, they have a couple of detectives and they play their body cams and they talk about what happened that day. But one of the really important witnesses on this day was the expert who reviewed all the materials and depositions. Now on cross, they come to find out that, you're not a real expert. You're just somebody knows somebody in this case. That's how you came in and you're charging $500 an hour. And you guys let me know if, that affected you at all. But she was the person that they say is an expert. And we're going to hear about her findings and what she think happened in this case and where she think Dr. Parker fell short. And this is a big crux of the argument of liability in this case. So let me know what you think of this expert. Because I think you have to believe this expert for the plaintiff to win.
If you can ask open-ended questions. Well,
Yes.
Technically, they are leading, so I'll sustain.
Yes, Your Honor. What findings and observations did you come to as a review of your materials related to the first incidents of information conveyed to Dr. Parker?
My findings were that Dr. Parker did not take action that I think an assistant principal should have taken at that time.
And when you say should have taken at that time, tell us, in your opinion and in your experience, what actions we're talking about.
When an administrator receives a report of a suspected weapon, I was trained, and it's written out in most policies and procedures handbooks, that administrator is to take it as a credible threat until you assess the situation and find otherwise. And so when a teacher came and reported that student said that a student had a gun, and it was a student who an hour earlier there had been reports that he was having difficulty and was threatening students at lunch, action should have been taken at that time.
And is it do you have an opinion as to whether that action, lack of action,
So there's some freezing here just in the video. I'm going to skip through.
time that there was interaction with Dr. Parker about a weapon on campus?
From my reading of reports throughout the day, depositions and timelines and different things, it appears
Second moment, you say there's 4.
So she goes through each individual moment where she thinks Parker dropped the ball. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 different times she was notified and didn't do what she was supposed to do.
What's your view as an administrator in that context, in Dr. Parker's situation, in terms of getting a second notice of a firearm on campus?
hearing it the first time and not taking action. I don't know, what individuals are thinking at that time, but when it comes back,
Even when you hear it once, you should take action. I don't know what she was thinking that she didn't take action when hearing it once. I tend to agree. Call me overly sensitive, but like in today's day and age, right? Like she might not have the hindsight of knowing what was going to happen that day, but she does have a history of knowledge of what's happens in schools, that you have to take these threats as credible. If you were a parent in the school, wouldn't you be pissed? If I'm just being honest, I would. And the jurors, I think, might be thinking that as well. Like she couldn't be bothered to separate him and search his person. There was another teacher that was willing to do it. She didn't even have to get out of her desk. Why would you say no to that? And we're not going to get the answer as to why she would say no to searching his person. I can't fathom that. Why would you say no to that's kind of where it comes to me with the indifference. Why would you say no? What skin off your neck was it to say no? I don't get that.
back up again, check the book bag. It's not there, but I'm getting reports that he has something in his pockets. That to me is a huge red flag. Take action. Get the kid secured. Search, call law enforcement, alert the principal. There are many things that needed to be done, and none of those were done at that time.
And Dr. Schuffelbarger, we're talking about Dr. Parker's actions, but none of the other teachers called 911.
So I'm going to back it up. This is an amazingly good question. I like the plaintiff's lawyers, how they're handling the case so far better than the defense attorneys, but the defense attorneys are going to still have their case. What I do like the defense attorneys are doing is they have a common theme, and they're going to ask her about hindsight as well, being 2020. I don't know that I agree with them that just because we're looking at it now with more facts that we can't use that, but that's what they're trying to say, that sure, everybody can say now they knew, but I didn't know at the time. I guess I kind of disagree with the way they're explaining that factually. You have to understand, I've watched 2 days of testimony already, right? Coming into this completely blank. So obviously the plaintiff should be proving their case now. The defense has their chance. But he's like, well, listen, this jury keeps hearing the defense point the finger at all these other teachers and administrators that were at the school that were subordinates to Dr. Parker. What about all them? Did they do the right thing, or did they also drop the ball? I think it's a great question to ask your expert.
Dr. Parker's actions, but none of the other teachers called 911.
There's a chain of command in a school, and there are usually policies and procedures that guide that. Teachers are taught, report to an administrator. Administrators are the leaders and are trained to take care of that. And it's my understanding that teachers did report it. Several teachers did talk to her about that. And, there's even a handbook provided by Rich. Can I mention that? The staff handbook for Rich Neck Elementary.
So they talk about that. They don't let her get into it. I'm going to jump ahead a little. I do want to answer a couple of these questions, though. Would you want more parents or less parents on a jury like this? I would want parents. I would want teachers. I would want law enforcement and anybody connected to law enforcement. I would want any of those people. Honestly, I don't know who I would not want. Maybe principals, I guess, but I think principals would be good too. To me, the more I see the facts of this case, it's not like, yes, it's shocking a 6-year-old did this, but is it shocking that that 6-year-old did this on that day with exactly what people had reported he said he had? Like, is that really not foreseeable? Are we just going to ignore that because, hindsight, because he actually did pull it out and have it? It's like, imagine if this is how it worked. Like, I think the plaintiff has a strong case so far. Now, what are the damages? How much money? That's a different discussion, I think.
Action was taken.
And from your perspective and in your expert opinion as a former administrator wearing that hat, what's your view and observation of what that amounts to?
That's failure to act in the course of safety for the school. That's endangers folks. When you hear something like that, I know I said it before, you're expected to take it credibly. Here's a second report that people think the student has a gun. Action needed to be taken to prevent possible safety issues.
And in your opinion, is that action should have been taken by Dr. Parker?
Yes.
And was that the last time, in your view, the materials that Dr. Parker was informed of a threat of a firearm on campus?
No, it was not. There was a third time involving a phone call between Mrs. West, who was a first grade teacher, and Mr. Sims, who was answering phones in the office. I know, depending on different things that I read.
And we don't have to get into,
Okay.
because the jury's already heard them testify. We don't.
But there was a phone conversation, and Mrs. West asked, had the student been searched? Or had the book bag been searched? I'm sorry, had the book bag been searched?
And so in your review of the materials, there was sort of a third moment in time in which Dr. Parker was faced with a decision or a choice?
Yes.
And in your opinion, as an administrator and as an educator in this field, how do you characterize her response? Did that meet the standard? Did that breach the standard?
It breached the standard of care and of job responsibility.
And was that the last time based upon your review of the materials?
No, there was a fourth time when two different teachers were at her office talking about.
Every single time, basically, she goes through and explains how she thinks she breached her duties and her standard of care. And I'm going to play a little bit of the defense's cross about how they get into, well, you have the benefit of hindsight, and she didn't.
Recognizing the dignity of a child. Is the dignity of a child more important than...
Sorry, that's the next clip. All right, this is cross now.
And here, Dr. Parker did not deny Mr. Rawls searching the student, but wanted to wait for the mother to get there because she was coming soon. Correct?
That is what I read that she said.
So she didn't deny him the ability to search. She just said the mother's coming soon. So that's going to be kind of quibbling. How's the jury going to see that? Does the jury see that as a denial or a just, yes, we are going to search him, just not right now? And is there a difference? Ethan Crumley's parents didn't come get him, just saying. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of elements to this, right? And just Veronica asked, is she suing the parents? Can she? I don't know. I don't know what else is going. Yes, she can, obviously, but I don't know what else is going on in this case. This is really my full experience with the case, is the trial we're getting here. And I love to hear questions like this because the jury's probably thinking the same thing. The jury probably has the same questions we all do. And the plaintiff and the defense, they've got to deal with that. How do you maneuver around this water and wade in these waters when there are these open-ended questions that they might never know? I think American Crime Story said, just seemed like she did not want to be bothered. I think that's what the plaintiff is trying to present to this jury. Yes. Indifference, right? Because that's what the defense said they have to prove. And that's what it seems like you're picking up.
You were answered a few questions about Newport News procedures and documents, but you were in Virginia Beach, correct?
Correct.
You don't know anything about training in Newport News on any documents that they have?
The only things I read, there was a multi-crisis handbook that I read about Newport News procedures and the Rich Neck handbook, and I don't know if I can discuss either of those.
But you don't know how training is done
No.
in Newport News,
No,
and you don't know
you're
how
correct.
Dr. Parker was trained
You're
about
correct.
those documents.
Yes.
Dr. Schaufelberger, you came to be an expert in this case with Mr. Bright, sister-in-law, correct?
Correct.
You'd never been an expert before. You've never sat on the witness stand as an expert witness, have you?
No, ma'am.
And you're charging $500?
So not a lot of emotion from the defendant that we've seen at all. Just take that for what you will.
An hour to sit here today, correct?
Correct.
And at the time you reviewed this case, You knew about the outcome at Rich Neck Elementary School on January 6th, didn't you?
I did.
You knew the outcome. And you yourself agree that it's unfair to judge someone's conduct with 20/20 hindsight vision, correct? You agree with that?
I can see that, yes.
And you agree that Dr. Parker, in evaluating information regarding a 6-year-old having a loaded gun at school, something that never happened to you, she did not know the outcome that day, correct?
Correct.
I have no further questions.
So good job to keep weaving in their theory. And she did ask, you've been a teacher for 40 years and you never saw something like this happen. But then that opens up the defense on redirect to ask these questions. And this is the last the jury hears from this expert.
The person.
Dr. Parker.
And there was a question about the
Parker testimony.
I'm going to overrule that.
whose job was it to contact law enforcement?
Dr. Parker.
Whose job was it to search the person?
Dr. Parker.
And there was a question about the dignity of a child, a 6-year-old child.
Correct.
Recognizing the dignity of a child. Is the dignity of a child more important than the safety of the individuals on campus when there's a report of a firearm?
I think you can manage both. You can handle all the things need to be handled with a student who potentially has a weapon in a dignified way and protect the privacy and the dignity of the child in a way that other children don't see it. But you can't ignore it, and we should not ignore it.
You got to get to the bottom of it.
Yes,
And
find
Dr.
out.
Parker never got to the bottom of it.
No.
Thank you.
Pretty good ending. Pretty good ending there on redirect. Then we go through some more doctors, chief of surgery, talk about how he managed her care, really good demonstrative aids. We're going to show some of them, talks about the 2 centimeters, explains a collapsed lung, how serious the injuries are, how the bullet's in her. She can never have an MRI again. And, women of her age testing for breast cancer and things like that, she can't have MRIs. They're going to have to figure out different ways to do that. It's going to affect her life forever. Then we get to an orthopedic trauma surgeon who talks about how this is a major hand injury, like 10 out of 10, and reminds him of what he saw in the war. There was a couple doctors that described it like this that I thought was pretty impactful. We'll listen to just a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there.
And when you saw her for the first time, was that on January 6th or on January 3rd? Yes, feel free to review any of your medical records.
The morning of the 7th of January.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you would please, roughly what did you see for purposes, and I'm going to go general and then I'm going to show you some medical.
A number of soft tissue injuries that were associated with that.
When you say soft tissue injuries, just tell the jury.
With a significant amount of bony injury or bone fractures, as well as a number of soft tissue injuries that were associated with that.
When you say soft tissue injuries, just tell the jury what are soft tissues of a hand, not the skin, I take it.
There's skin, muscles, ligaments, joint capsules, nerves, blood vessels.
And have you seen those types of injuries in your past?
Yes, sir. This, we take care of a lot of stuff at Riverside Regional Medical Center, but on if you stratified these in a scale of 1 to 10, this was a more closely associated with a 10 type injury, which we were seeing frequently during the war.
And what war were you treating orthopedic surgeon injuries with bullet wounds?
OEF, OIF, and Iraq and Afghanistan.
I have shown you and shown count.
I mean, to me, that's pretty good explanation, right? And then we're going to look at some of these diagrams that he puts up there. I mean, look at that. Look at these x-rays and look at the diagrams explaining what happened to her hand. It's not just like, what was the case? Was that Rihanna's husband, where like the scrape on the finger, right? From the bullet, we talked about the scrape on the finger, how that was kind of no big deal. This is not no big deal. This is life-changing. Nobody should ever have to go to this. If I was on the jury, which I'd never get picked for a jury like this, I'd give a ton of money for that injury. Not even, we're not even talking about the chest injury at this point. But she has multiple surgeries. They had to go take bone out of her hip and put it into her hand. It's horrible. It's horrible. And then you get this, and this is just a great, lawyer moment where, he explains there's, a ton of these diagrams. He explains all the different surgeries they did. Like they did surgeries on her wrist because she lost range of motion and she has all of these issues. And then at some point he asks him to come down from the stand with the client and explain to the jury the discoloration, how the hand looks different, how it works different, what issues she still has. This is great lawyering. Anytime you can, the jury is going to be locked in now. The diagrams were great. I really think the presentation of the evidence in this case was really well done.
Back of the hand, that's where some of the soft tissue was lost. You can see the entrance and the exit ones are up here.
Here it is good because there's no mics around, but you get the point of him demonstrating this.
If I ask her to move the hand dorsally, there's going to be tightness in there. If I ask her to flex it, there's going to be tightness in there. Let's see a lot of color change now, maybe a little bit darker here, but as her nerves fire, they can cause blood vessels to expand or contract, and that somewhat gives her those color changes. Although this is better than it was, the ability to extend that middle finger all the way is not perfect yet. And so, you do the other side as well. And to certainly see that she doesn't have the ability to bring the fingers down all the way. Then you can see on the inside here where we did the surgery there, that's where we do a carpal tunnel surgery and remove that. There's certainly, if you can compare both sides, there's a lot of thickening in there where there's scar tissue. If you bring your finger and spread them apart, she doesn't have the muscles that spread your fingers apart or probably the osseous muscles. She's not able to fire her ossei don't bring the fingers all the way apart.
And scarring and stuff like that's obviously a big deal as well. Usually research shows on women scarring is worth more damages. Not always, but that's what most of the research shows. And then on Cross, they basically are like, did you know she completed cosmetology school and, she can do that? And he was like, yes, I did hear that. Congratulations. That's great. She's a really hard worker. Her hand is as close to good as it's ever going to be because she did such a good job in PT. She was vigilant. She did everything she possibly could, but it's never going to be what it was. It's never going to be as good as her other hand. Chris said, thanks, Peter. Please continue the coverage. At the end of the day, it makes me sad a 6-year-old ended up doing this. Brutal. Horrible. Everything about this is sad. Everything. There's nothing where we're like, oh, good. I agree with you. It's brutally, brutally sad. Then we hear from another orthopedic surgeon, the guy that takes all the hard cases. He kind of explains it the same way. This orthopedic surgeon bolstered him, basically talking about what a great doctor he is. Again, more just like plates and screws. And I think this is the guy that talked about she's going to end up having to have these plates removed in 6 to 8 months. So another surgery. And every time you have surgery, there's recovery, there's risks, there's infection, there's just all sorts of things that can go wrong. So to have 6, 7, 8, 9 surgeries is just absolutely brutal. And the surgery on her chest to remove the bullet is too dangerous, so they can't even do that. I mean, to me, a really, really good presentation of the evidence. Then lastly, we're going to hear from her twin sister, Hannah. They humanize it. She did a good job talking about them growing up. And we'll hear the defense talk about, the big shot they want to take at her is, you created a GoFundMe, didn't you? You guys tell me, in today's day and age, is that surprising to you or that weird or like, oh, let's not give her any money because her sister created a GoFundMe? They're not allowed to talk about how much money was given into it. And then they're like, you know what else? Oh, it's so hard for you to take care of your sister. You bought her concert tickets, didn't you? Taylor Swift Eras Tour. I don't know if you want to piss off the Swifties, on the jury potentially. They come in all shapes and sizes and genders, so you never know who's a Swiftie. But we're going to listen to kind of the end of the direct, talking about the damages and how this has affected her sister. And then we're going to listen to a chunk of the cross as well. This will be the last clip we listen to today.
Reclusive.
And when you say she's keeping stuff to herself, tell me what that looks like when you see it in the real world.
Just shutting down, becoming more reclusive. It's like a wall is put up between her and the rest of the world.
And before January 6, 2023, did you ever feel like that wall was ever between you and your sister?
No.
Do you feel like there is a wall, however tall it might be, between you and her now?
Yeah, we're working on it, but it's there.
You said earlier that she's sort of reclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked before about sort of her demeanor to not be the person to grab a book and sit by the fire.
Yeah.
How has that changed since January 6th?
She doesn't leave the house. It's very hard to get her to go out and do things, and if she does, someone has to be with her. She's really afraid of being alone.
And when she's out and about, because she is sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And you see her, do you see that same light, that same color in Abby that you used to see?
No.
Can you tell us what you do see?
Someone who is scared but trying to be strong for other people.
Is that what you see today?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Hannah. Those are all the questions I have.
All right.
A few questions.
Cross-examination.
They do a good job. Call me a sucker. I think they do a good job. Like that was, you can't fake that blushed face, right? And the eyes are wet, but she's not crying, right? It's like, you can't fake that to me, my opinion. I think she did a really good job. And now here comes the cross. Careful crossing a sympathetic, very nice witness who is a twin of the person this happened to. You got to be careful.
You've told the jury that your sister's been more reclusive and withdrawn from the community.
Yes.
You have put your sister out in the community through fundraising websites, haven't you?
Yes.
You created a GoFundMe page,
I did.
and it has Abby's picture on it, correct?
Yes.
It puts her story out in
Yes.
the internet.
That's correct.
And you also have a website to sell T-shirts.
That's correct.
And again, you put your sister's story out in the universe and make her available.
That is correct. It was not without her permission.
What? Like, what's that prove? She's reclusive. She put a wall up between her and the world. It's like, you made a GoFundMe page. It's like, okay. I'm not sure what that's impeaching.
And if that's...
So she allowed that. And you talk about that your sister doesn't want to go anywhere. Have you given your sister any gifts of concert tickets?
I
since
have.
that? And where was that?
I drained my bank account to take her to Taylor Swift.
So she was able to go to Taylor Swift?
Yes.
And
And it was not without its own challenges.
That's a pretty large crowd.
It was.
Where was it?
Philadelphia.
The Eras Tour in Philadelphia?
That's correct.
And your sister was able to go do that?
Like I said, yes, but it was not without its challenges.
Thank you.
Let's not give her any money. This didn't affect her at all, right? She was able to go to a concert, the Eras Tour, and listen to music. She's fine, members of the jury. Give me a break. She's had 2 clients and went to cosmetology school. She's fine. And people think this only happens in like frivolous cases with not real injuries. It's not true. They do this in every case, hoping somebody on the jury is like, yeah, I couldn't even go to the Eras Tour. That's not fair. John said those tickets are $2,000 to $3,000 a piece. Who cares? Who cares? So is the only people that are affected by this, and the only people that can receive damages in the case are somebody that sits at home and does nothing forever, for years and years and years. Those are the only people that deserve damages? Give me a break. I certainly hope nobody ever has to deal with a traumatic event, because it's really hard to do things. You push yourself to do things. You force yourself to do things. A lot of times when you do those things, it creates other problems later. Panic attacks, PTSD, it's too loud. You realize that's another fun thing I've got to cross off my list that I can never do again, which adds to depression. I have hundreds of clients this happens to that I've represented over the years. It's brutal. It's brutal. Peter, will you be giving an update on the Maya Kowalski decision today? Not today, but I absolutely will be giving an update on this. So stay tuned. Make sure you guys are subscribed. It's going to be a big one. And I want to do it right. I want to think about it, go through it, see the arguments from both sides, explain them from both sides, see where I land, and then talk about the future, because it's a brutal, brutal, devastating future for her. It's a problem with our judicial system, how this is set up and works. So we'll talk about this. If they did a search of the child's bag, would that not be a violation of civil rights? No, absolutely not. Reasonable suspicion, lower expectation of privacy in schools. Absolutely not. Heaven forbid she have fun after being shot, huh, Peter? How tiring does that get in personal injury? LOL. It's really annoying. Really annoying, in case you can't tell. Really annoying. Okay, let's see here. I think that's the last one. We're over an hour, so hopefully you guys have hit like on this video. And like I said, maybe every couple days we'll do an update on this to keep you guys posted on it. If you want it, let me know by hitting the like button on this video, and go watch the opening statements as well if you haven't done that already. But for this one, that's all we got. Till next time, I am out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. And if you have a case that you want to personally talk to us about in your life, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, truck accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.